Hi, good day, King Gabriel here, going live in spiritual growth, connecting with you. It might be a little loud today because we have a little work being done and I can hear it, but hopefully it doesn't affect you too much. I am here today though to discuss this beautiful question. Why do we create? Right? Why do we create? Now, creation itself could be defined in many different ways, but when we talk about create, we're talking about not making something out of the sense of a lack or need, but making something or creating, different to making, having something come about in a way that pleases you. It might be surprising. The way that it's done might not be something that you've thought of before. It's an expression of what you are, right? And there's a key to what I'm saying in that statement I just made, right? Because it's an expression of what you are. You can only create as you are, right? And creation itself is an expression of your being. Just like it's said in scripture and in different texts that exist at this point, the creator itself, source, spirit, creator, extended itself, right? So we're expressions of that. And so our impulse to create comes from that idea that we ourselves are just like that, right? If you pick for instance, if you have a tree, whatever fruit that tree bears will also bear that same type of tree eventually from the seeds, right? And if you look at it, it's always that ongoing process of expression back to regeneration, expression back to regeneration. So why do we create really? We create because we're the fruit. We're beautiful fruit, you know, and in being the beautiful fruit, the manifest idea or the expressed idea, we have the opportunity to go and to create or regenerate something brand new, but it will be like the beginning because it must be of the same kind. It's always of the same kind. It's not going to be something different. Hence, to answer the question really, we create because it's in us to create. We create because it's in us to create, right? We create because there is an impulse in us, a seed in us, a light within us, whatever you'd like to call that, that sparks a desire within us to want to create. So when you've done all you've done and you're finished your first projects, etc., that you've done, most of us, we tend to want to do more. Where does that wanting to do more come from? Exactly that same space. The same desire to create is the impulse that leads us to want to do more, to have more. And it can be thwarted sometimes because when the ego gets a hold of that, or the individual self that's protecting an idea of ourselves, when it gets a hold of that, it sees it as the more things that I can acquire or the more things that I can have, the more that I'm in that mode of creation. But that's not really what it is. There's a receptive part of that too that we must pay attention to, right? It's not just about all push like some people do. They grind, right? And it's not bad, by the way. What I'm saying there is not bad. Some people have that drive in them to push, and kudos to them, the go-getters, the people that get up and go and do things. That's awesome when you're like that. But if you're not like that and you're trying to be that, it would be akin to that statement by whoever said it, I believe it was Einstein, judging a fish on its ability to climb a tree, right? A fish can climb a tree, so it would seem like a failure in that way. But we're not meant to all do it the same way. So when we have people rushing to do things, trying to get there as quickly as possible, trying to knock things out and do the strategy, they get worn out, they get burnt out, right? And that burning out is not because they're bad people or they're doing things the wrong way or any of that stuff. It's just that whatever they're undertaking is challenging. It's challenging, right? It's challenging because it's not in their nature to be that way. It's not natural to be that way for that person, for that being. So when headed on a path like that, it's always important to have awareness of what you really are. What are the contents of your being? Some people are called lazy in society, for instance, because they're not all go, right? That's a word used for them. But some people are not really lazy. They're just the type of people that sit back, look at a situation, assess what's happening, do a lot of assessment before making a move, right? And some people rush to make moves. They make moves quickly. And then sometimes in making those quick moves, they realize later on that they took a wrong step earlier on. And then now they have to go and retrace their steps and waste even more time, right? Because that happens to some of us. So back to the question, why do we create? We create because it's in our being to do so, and the way that we do so, right, is up to us. We can create under stress and duress, in which we feel the push energy, push, I have to get this done. In fact, it's like wanting to move from the state that you're in. That's the real desire for most people, right? And it shows up in that way as push. But there's also the pull element of something wanting to be expressed, some beautiful idea wanting to be expressed. And back to the hint I gave earlier, that beautiful idea that wants to be expressed is us. It's us, the true us that's free to create as it wants to create, free to move through, because you have a spirit. You have spirit. All of us have spirit, right? We are spirit. This is spiritual growth. We're spirit, and spirit is free to move from state to state at all times. For instance, you can have a spirit that you would call a happy spirit, somebody that's happy, they're in a joyful spirit. That's what we say, right? What is a joyful spirit? A joyful spirit is someone who has become happy because they've moved into a state of joy. So it would seem like that spirit is a joyful spirit. And then you would say that person is a sad spirit, or this. We have different words for it, by the way, right? Or a bad spirit. What's that? Just moving into another state, the same being moving into another state. That's not something that we want to associate with or be around for too long, and we call that a bad spirit. But it's not a bad spirit. It's just the same being that is free, that has moved into another state, right? So our creation then lies in us moving into the state that we'd like to be in and expressing that directly, which then becomes the visible results that we see in this world. So why do we create? Because we have an idea to express, an idea of ourselves to express. That's really what we're doing. We're knowing ourselves through our creations. That's why we create. We create so that we will know ourselves as we are, not question ourselves or doubt ourselves. So all the people who are going through, for instance, this thing called impersonation. What is it called again? I've forgotten about it. I've dealt with it so much that I kind of put it out of my mind, but I'm recalling it for this conversation. Imposter syndrome, that's what it's called. Imposter syndrome is just you not believing fully that what you've stepped into, you are. Right? Because you could put your spirit, your energy, into that and become that immediately if you choose to. But the question mark, the feeling of being distant from it, the idea that it's so far to reach or it's not really you, is you holding on to an old idea of yourself while trying to put on something new, which then leaves you feeling distant and disconnected from the outcome. Right? So there is no imposter syndrome really. It's just you haven't given yourself fully to the new state. That's all that is, right? If you have any sense of imposter syndrome, it's mainly because you haven't given yourself over to the other state fully. You're still dwelling in an old state and trying to move into a new one at the same time, and you can't do both. It's conflict. The conflict will show up in feelings of doubt, feelings of concern, feelings of superiority or inferiority, and leave you disconnected from the outcome, right? Whereas if you dive in fully and you believe fully, there's no imposter there. It's just this is what I am right now. I'm this because I say that. I'm this. I say that. Right? And you don't even have to justify it with somebody else and say, because I say that. You don't even have to say that really. You can just say, I am this. That's all there is to it. Right? So, why do we create? To know ourselves better, to know ourselves as what we declare ourselves to be and to live that fully. Does that make sense in terms of us creating? Yes, it definitely does. Right? Because in the way that we were created, if you believe in the creation myth, etc., then we are created in the likeness of something that's amazing. So why would we be anything less than amazing if we're of the same kind? Right? We're amazing. Obviously we're amazing. But then we want to see and know that amazingness for ourselves. We want to see and know that. So in expressing that through our creations, through what we do, we put this stamp of approval on our own idea of ourselves. Right? Because ourselves are already created, right? And it's already awesome. But the idea of ourselves, our own understanding of ourselves, our consciousness, our awareness of ourselves, self-awareness if you call it that, that is what we're working with. And we want to be able to see, to observe that, to know that fully, to know that we are that. For instance, when you're kind to somebody, you see yourself being kind, so you believe you're a kind person. And then if somebody comes and conflicts and says to you, you're not kind, you're mean, you'll say, no, that's not true. Why can you say that's not true? Because the evidence that you've seen of yourself in other situations tells you that you're actually kind. So you believe that you're kind, right? And then that is a conflict now, because you can't buy that person's story about you because you know a different story about yourself. This is what we create to remind ourselves instantly, or expression, right? It's self-expression. The more you express yourself, the more that you'll find you know yourself better and better. Now, I'm hoping that you guys are hearing me, because I'm seeing some internet stuff going on here. It might be fading in and out, hopefully not. But anyways, we've come to that point where we know why we create. Now, it's how are you going to create from here with that awareness? Because now you know that, right? And you probably have known that before, but you never really went through a whole discussion about it like this. But either way, if you're here and you're creating and you're in this space, and you realize that there are certain ideals about yourself that you want to have expressed, then it's up to you to start living those ideals and claiming them as yourself, right? Yes, through internal self-talk and those sorts of things, but also in a real feeling of being that thing, right? The real feeling of accepting that thing as true for you. That's where it all starts, and that's where it all ends too. Because the moment that you accept it as true of yourself is when it really sinks into your consciousness and it must be expressed. So allow yourself to sink into that. Give yourself the opportunity to dive into what you really are and what you want to express, because they're one and the same. What you want to express is what you see yourself as, which is what you believe yourself to be. Therefore, it's what you are. I hope some of my logic makes sense for you. Okay? So guys, that's what I wanted to say today. I hope that you guys have a glorious time in the group this week, right? If you want to connect, oh yeah, by the way, we have that Thrive and Actualize going on right now. Book your call, all right? Or if you were with us in the last section, fill out the application and we'll connect, and I can guide you through what your next steps are if you're moving on with us to what we've created. We've created something awesome, and we definitely want you to be a part of it if it's a fit. So look for the application on the last post we did for the wealth creation scenario. It will be there. You'll see Tara and I in a little video. Jump in there and check that out. And if it fits you, fill out the application and we'll connect. Or you can just contact me directly if you're interested, and I'll run through the process of helping you to navigate what you're up to and what you really want to create at this point in time, and look at the ways that we can support you in doing exactly that. Have a beautiful one today, and it's been great as always. Eternal love and infinite peace.